You hear the word inflation, and what comes to mind? Probably numbers, right? Economic reports, charts on a screen. But what if it's something deeper? Today, we're going to dive into a story that frames inflation not just as a problem with money, but as a mirror reflecting a society's soul.
So let's set the scene. Our story begins with a young guy named Ahmed. Now, Ahmed's the kind of person who actually likes to walk, finds a bit of peace in it. But not today. Today, he's loaded down with bags, and all he's thinking is, I need a ride home.
And right then, a rickshaw pulls up. The driver's face, it's kind of familiar, One of those faces you feel like you've seen before. But his tone is all professional when he asks, "Yes, brother, where do you want to go?"
So Ahmed tells him where he's going. It's a route he knows like the back of his hand. But the driver's response? It was a shocker. "Sir, 100 rupees.
Now, to give you some context here, Ahmed knew this trip. He'd walked it 100 times. And on the off chance he did grab a ride, it was never more than, say, 50 rupees. So this guy, he was asking for more than double, just like that.
You can imagine, right? Ahmed felt this rush of anger. He was ready to let this guy have it, to argue about this crazy price. But then, the driver said something that just stopped him in his tracks. It wasn't an argument. It was just the simple, quiet truth of his situation.
You could just see it in his posture, his shoulders kind of slumped, and his voice was just heavy when he said, "Sir, what can we do? Everything has become expensive." And that was it. The honesty in that simple sentence just dissolved Ahmed's anger. He didn't say another word. He just got in.
As they started moving, the driver just wiped some sweat from his forehead and said something else, almost to himself. "Sir, you only have to pay the fare. Our entire day's earnings now barely cover 2 meals. And what do you say to that?" Ahmed was silent. Every single word the man spoke felt like a heavy, undeniable truth.
And in that moment, something clicked for Ahmed. All his own frustrations about prices going up, they started to look different. He realized inflation isn't just a headline or a number on a chart. No, it's the exhaustion in a person's eyes. It's a human story.
Suddenly, inflation wasn't a percentage, it was the empty plate of a mother making sure her kids eat first. It was the fear that seeps into a home like a cold fog. It was the tiny flame on a poor man's stove, and the constant worry that it might just go out.
So you see, Ahmed's short rickshaw ride became this huge revelation. His story isn't just about him and that one driver. It's really a snapshot of a struggle that's happening everywhere, affecting everyone.
I mean, think about it. The laborer who spends all day looking at fresh produce in the market but goes home empty-handed because he can't afford it. Or what about the teacher? Her salary used to be enough, but now it doesn't even cover her own kids' school fees. They're working just as hard, but the value of that work is just disappearing.
And all of this really begs a huge question, doesn't it? Where does all this come from? Does it just fall out of the sky? Is it like some kind of natural disaster we just have to endure?
Well, the perspective we're looking at today says absolutely not. It argues that this isn't an act of God. It's a crisis we created. It comes from rulers who treat the country's treasury like their own private bank account. It comes from traders who'd rather let grain rot than sell it at a fair price. And maybe most importantly, it comes from our own choice to just look the other way.
Okay, and this is the part where it gets a little uncomfortable. Because now the focus shifts to us. It's time to look in the mirror.
So let's be honest for a second. When your servant, or someone who helps you out, says they're struggling to get by, what do? Do you give them advice to cut back on their spending while you don't cut back on your own?
Think about this hypocrisy. We might scream our heads off about a textbook costing 20 rupees more, but then we'll go out and feel proud of ourselves for buying a 1,000-rupee burger without batting an eye. It's a weird double standard, isn't it?
And that brings us right to the heart of the matter. Inflation, from this point of view, is not just an economic problem. It's a sign of a moral collapse. It's what happens when our empathy, our sense of community, just withers away.
So, if that's the diagnosis, what's the cure? Well, if it's a moral problem, then the solution has to be a moral one too. It's not about pointing fingers or just complaining. It's about moving toward action and responsibility.
And that means making a personal pledge. A 3-part pledge, really. First, to adopt a simpler life. Second, to stop being wasteful. And third, and this is the big one, to actually help our neighbors who are getting burned by this fire of rising prices.
Because here's the bottom line, and it's a powerful thought to end on.
When people sitting on heaps of grain start fighting over pieces of bread, understand that the foundations of society have become hollow. When you see that happen, you have to understand something is deeply, deeply wrong.